3 years ago, I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. A dark, suicidal alter was born inside my mind. To take care of me, Helen quit her 6-figure job. David worked endless odd jobs after his regular shifts just to pay for my therapy. My 5-year-old sister, Lily, did everything she could to help around the house, always walking on eggshells around me. Today was Lily's 6th birthday. Helen came to my room early in the morning. "Lily has suffered so much because of you over the years," Helen said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Today is her birthday. Just be good, Maya. Don't make a scene." I nodded obediently. What Helen didn't know was that in order to celebrate Lily's birthday, I had been taking my medication on time for a whole week. But the moment Lily's birthday cake was placed on the table, a blinding pain split my skull. Eve, my alter, was trying to take control of my body. Trembling, I gently tugged at Helen's sleeve. Before I could say a word, Helen, who was usually so gentle, slapped me hard across the face and dragged me into the bathroom. "It's Lily's birthday. Can't you stop faking your episodes for just one day? If you're really in that much pain, then just go die already. You psycho. You're ruining this family." Helen screamed hysterically at me, slamming the bathroom door shut. Holding back my tears, I gave up. I stopped fighting Eve. I chose to set Helen, David, and Lily free. And I decided to let Eve have her wish. Eve took over my body. I became a helpless ghost, forced to watch her try to kill us over and over again. When I was 8, she took advantage of our parents being at the care facility looking after my sick grandmother. She climbed onto the balcony, ready to jump. Luckily, David came home early and caught her just in time. But David broke his leg in the struggle. It took him 3 months before he could walk again. Last winter, Eve found a piece of broken glass while Helen wasn't looking and slashed our wrist. Helen scrambled to get me to the ER. She stayed by my hospital bed for 3 days and 3 nights without closing her eyes. But Eve wouldn't stop. Not long after we got discharged, she filled the bathtub to the brim and pushed my head underwater. In the end, it was Lily who pulled my shoulder so hard she dislocated her own joint, barely dragging me out of the tub. Eve used my body to court death again and again. Helen and David dragged me back from the edge every single time. Every time I woke up, my family would break down in tears. "Maya, I'm begging you, please stop doing this. Are you trying to kill us all before you're satisfied? Maya, are you okay?" We were so scared. To keep them from hurting, I used to swallow handfuls of pills just to fight Eve for control. But this time, whatever. Eve looked at the eyebrow razor on the vanity, slipping it gently into her pocket. Instinctively, my consciousness screamed and struggled inside our mind. But then, Helen's words echoed in my head, "If you're really in that much pain, then just go die already." I stopped fighting. Outside the door, David's confused voice drifted in. "Helen, where is Maya? Isn't she coming to eat cake with Lily?" Helen's voice cracked, filled with long-suppressed resentment. "She's in there, faking another episode. I tolerate her drama every other day, but today is Lily's birthday. She just has to ruin it. In all these years, Lily has never had a proper birthday party." David sighed, his voice dripping with pure exhaustion. "Let her cool down by herself. She needs to grow up. Let's just celebrate with Lily. She just wants to eat some cake. We can't let her down again." Eve laughed mockingly inside my head. "See? David and Helen don't love you. Why are you still holding on? They are miserable because of you. It's all your fault." I wanted to scream back at her. I wanted to say that they did love me. They gave up everything for me. But then I thought of the scar on David's shoulder, the dark circles under Helen's eyes, and Lily's desperate, people-pleasing smiles. Maybe Eve was right. I was the source of all their misery. To pay for my therapy, David worked multiple jobs. His back was so ruined he could barely stand, and on rainy days, the pain kept him bedridden. Helen had to run between the care facility for grandmother and home to watch me, sleeping barely 3 hours a night. Lily, at just 5 years old, did everything she could to please me, giving up her childhood just to keep the peace. If I died, maybe everyone would finally be happy. I stopped fighting. I watched as Eve turned on the faucet, stepping into the overflowing bathtub. Without a second of hesitation, she took the razor and sliced deep into our wrist. The water slowly bloomed into a deep, crimson red. My soul felt lighter, starting to float. This was good. It was finally over. David wouldn't have to spend his nights applying pain patches anymore. Helen wouldn't have to run herself into the ground trying to cure me. And Lily could finally have a normal, happy childhood. My family was finally free of their psycho daughter. Right before my consciousness fully faded, the control shifted back to me. Looking toward the bathroom door, I whispered my very last words. David, Helen, Lily. I'm so sorry. If there is a next life, I promise I won't burden you again. When I opened my eyes again, I was floating right next to the dining table. David was gently covering Lily's eyes while Helen carefully brought out a fruit cake with lit candles. Happy 6th birthday to our sweet Lily. Lily opened her eyes, a look of pure joy on her face. Mom, Dad, I've never seen such a beautiful cake. My eyes welled with tears. When I first got sick, Lily was still a toddler. Because of me, she never had a real birthday. Every single year on her birthday, I would have a severe episode. Helen and David would have to rush me to the hospital, completely forgetting about her. This was literally the first time Lily had ever had a birthday cake. Helen turned her head to wipe away a tear, cutting a large slice for Lily. Eat as much as you want, sweetheart. But Lily grabbed the plate and ran straight to the bathroom. She knocked softly on the door. Maya, come out and eat cake. I saved you the sweetest piece. I wrapped my ghostly arms around her tiny body, wishing I could speak to her. I'm sorry, Lily. I can't eat cake with you anymore. It's my fault. I ruined your birthday again. But my hands passed straight through her. I couldn't touch her. When no one answered, Lily lowered her head, walking back to the table, deflated. Mom, is Maya mad at me? She won't talk to me. Helen pulled Lily into a hug, her voice hardening with anger. Ignore her. She's just playing victim. She threatens to kill herself every time, and we always save her. She's doing it for attention again. Today is your day, my princess. Let's not let her ruin it. As Helen spoke, she noticed the plate of food Lily had saved on the table for me. Frustrated, Helen swept the plate directly into the trash can. If she wants to starve, let her. We don't owe her anything. I'm sick of her drama. I froze, tears pouring down my face. I'm not faking it. I was in so much pain every single day. Lily looked at the trash can, panicked, and tried to defend me. Don't say that about Maya. She's just sick. She's really nice to me when she feels better. David patted Lily's back. Lily, your sister is being selfish. She only thinks about her own pain. She never thinks about what this family goes through. Because of her, Helen and I are exhausted to the bone, and she still pulls these stunts. Floating in the air, I stared at David in disbelief. This was the dad who used to cherish me more than anything. It hadn't always been like this. Everything changed when I was 7. When I was 7, David and Helen left me at our neighbor's house for an afternoon. The neighbor, Mr. Henderson, locked me in his basement and abused me. That was the day Eve was born. Eve would replay that basement nightmare in our head, over and over, begging for death. Back then, David would kneel by my bed, crying, begging for my forgiveness, promising he would protect me forever. But David, did you get tired too? I'm sorry. It really was all my fault. Even as a ghost, I felt a sharp, agonizing pain in my chest. Helen nudged David, her voice a mix of anger and grief. How can you say that? Maya might be difficult, but we owe her this. Helen's eyes reddened. She was only 7 when that monster, if we hadn't left her there, she would be normal. She wouldn't be trying to end her life. Today is Lily's birthday. Let's not fight. We'll have a serious talk with Maya tomorrow. Helen wiped her tears, gently stroking Lily's hair. Lily, you didn't make a wish yet. Make a wish. Lily's face lit up. She closed her eyes tight and said with absolute sincerity. I wish that David, Helen, Maya, and I can be together forever. Those words stabbed Helen right in the heart. Helen gasped, covering her mouth as she rushed into the bedroom. I could hear her muffled, agonizing sobs through the door. It was a cry of pure guilt, helplessness, and exhaustion. David's eyes turned red too. He silently placed a paper crown on Lily's head. Dad promises you. We will be together forever. I wrapped my arms around David and Lily, whispering in the quiet room. I'm sorry, Lily. Your wish will never come true. But without me, you and our parents will be so much happier. No more medical bills, no more constant fear, no more sleepless nights. After tucking Lily into bed, David stood outside the bathroom door, knocking gently. Maya, come on out. It's cold in there. Let me make you some food. Don't you love my homemade steak? I'll make a huge plate just for you. Only dead silence answered him. I'll never get to taste your steak again. Seeing no response, David walked back into the bedroom and whispered to Helen. Why did you lock Maya in the bathroom for so long? Her mental state is unstable. Shouldn't we check on her? Helen remained silent for a moment before shaking her head. I didn't lock the door. She can walk out whenever she wants. There's only an eyebrow razor in there. She can't do any real damage with that. We've coddled her for years because of her illness. She can't keep acting out like this. My tears fell silently. I was trying to be a good girl. I wasn't trying to act out. David sighed heavily. He sat down with Helen to calculate this month's bills. My therapy was over $1,500, and grandmother's care facility fees were astronomical. Helen covered her face, letting out a low, broken sob. David, when will this end? Maya can't even go to school. We're going to have to support her for the rest of our lives. I don't know if we can survive this. David squeezed Helen's hand, pulling her into his chest. She's our daughter, Helen. Even if we go broke, we have to cure her. Once the construction project is done, I'll start driving Uber at night. We'll get through this. Looking at the silver hairs on David's head and Helen's tears, my heart shattered into a million pieces. They hadn't given up on me. They still loved me. But I realized it too late. That night, David and Helen slept right outside the bathroom door. Watching them, my soul was crushed under the weight of guilt. As the first light of dawn broke, soft noises came from the kitchen. With bloodshot eyes, Helen stood by the stove, making creamy mushroom soup. When I was little and got sick, she would always make this for me. But ever since my diagnosis, she hadn't made it once. She was cooking it so carefully, exactly the way I used to beg for it. It smells so good. I want to taste it so badly, but I can't. Helen carried the bowl to the bathroom door, her voice raspy. Maya, stop throwing a tantrum. I made your favorite mushroom soup. It's warm. Eat some, and then take your meds. I shouldn't have hit you yesterday. I shouldn't have said those things. Lily is waiting to play with you. Come out, okay? Let's fix this. Nothing but absolute silence came from inside. Helen's patience finally snapped. Her face hardened. Maya. Don't do this. Do you think faking your death is going to make us feel sorry for you? Haven't we suffered enough for you? Still, there was no answer. Fuming, Helen slammed the bowl down on the floor, the soup splashing everywhere, and twisted the doorknob. Maya, did you actually die in there? The brass knob turned with a hollow, metallic click. When Helen shoved the door open, the momentum carried her half a step forward. Into the bathroom before her boots lost traction on the slick linoleum. The air that rushed out was not warm or humid, it smelled faintly of iron and chilled porcelain, accompanied by the low, monotonous trickle of the overflowing drain. Maya, get up off the floor and stop this. The words died in Helen's throat. The ceramic bowl slipped from her fingers. It hit the doorframe first, then shattered across the threshold in a violent spray of white porcelain shards and steaming mushroom soup. The hot broth splattered against her shins, soaking through her stockings, but she did not flinch. She did not move at all. Floating just above the doorway, I reached down, my translucent fingers passing uselessly through her trembling shoulder. Mom, look away, I pleaded, though no sound escaped my throat. Please, just turn around. Don't look. The bathtub was filled to the brim, the water dyed a thick, dark crimson that had spilled over the edges, pooling around the pedestal of the sink. Beneath the surface, my body rested motionless, head tilted back against the sloped porcelain, long dark hair floating like tangled seaweed. My skin had turned the color of winter frost, the lips parted slightly in an expression of quiet, hollow relief. My right arm hung limp over the side, the shallow, frantic cuts of an amateur razor having torn deep enough into the radial artery to drain the warmth completely out of my veins. Helen's breath came out in a dry, rattling gasp. Her knees gave out instantly, crashing hard onto the tile, directly into the broken shards of the ceramic bowl. She crawled forward on hands and knees, heedless of the glass biting into her palms. Maya? It was barely a whisper, a small, childlike question that carried no comprehension of reality. She reached the side of the tub and thrust both hands into the freezing, red water. When her skin touched mine, the sheer temperature of my corpse seemed to electrocute her. She jerked back with a choked shriek, then threw herself forward again, wrapping her arms under my waterlogged shoulders and hauling upward with frantic, unnatural strength. David! David, help me! David! Her screams were not human. They were the sound of an animal caught in an iron trap, tearing its own flesh to get free. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. David appeared in the frame, a towel in one hand and Lily's half-eaten toast in the other. Helen, what happened? Did she? David froze. The color drained from his face with terrifying speed, leaving behind a gray, parchment-like pallor. His jaw went slack. The towel dropped to the floor, soaking up a ribbon of pink water that had crept toward the hallway carpet. No, David whispered. He shook his head once, twice, as if rejecting a hallucination. No, no, no. He lunged into the bathroom, knocking his shoulder against the medicine cabinet. Mirrors rattled, amber pill bottles tumbled into the sink. He plunged into the tub beside Helen, his heavy work shirt instantly soaking through with red water. As he seized my torso. Pull her out. Help me pull her out. David roared, veins bulging against his neck. Together, screaming incoherent prayers, they dragged my lifeless shell over the rim. The water sloshed violently, splashing over their faces and soaking their clothes, but neither wiped it away. They laid my body onto the bath mat. David dropped to his knees, his hands trembling violently as he interlocked his fingers over my sternum. 1, 2, 3, 4, come on, Maya, breathe. Breathe. With every compression, bloody water bubbled up from my mouth and nose. The sound of my ribs creaking under his desperate force made Helen cover her ears, rocking back and forth in the pool of blood and soup. Call 911. David bellowed, his voice breaking into a wet, ragged sob. Helen. Dial 911 now. Helen scrambled blindly for her pocket, pulling out her phone with hands so drenched in blood and water that the touchscreen would not register her fingertips. She wiped the screen against her sweater, smearing dark stains across the knit fabric, sobbing so violently that she could barely draw the breath to speak when the operator finally answered. My daughter, she's not breathing, there's so much blood, please, God. Please, for 42 Elm Street, please hurry, she's cold, she's so cold. I hovered beside David, dropping to my knees as if I were still flesh and bone. I laid my ethereal hands over his, trying desperately to ease the crushing burden in his chest. David, stop, I whispered, tears spilling from eyes that no longer existed. Stop. Dad. It's too late. I'm already gone. You're hurting your hands, please, stop. He didn't hear me. He bent down, pinching my cold nose, pressing his mouth against my blue lips to force air into lungs that would never expand again. When he tasted the copper of my blood, he gagged once, swallowed it down, and pushed air into me again. Wake up, baby, David wept into my dead face, his tears mixing with the red streaks across my cheeks. Daddy's here. I'm not angry. I swear to God I'm not angry. Just open your eyes. Maya, please, open your eyes. From the hallway came the soft, hesitant patter of bare feet. Lily stood at the end of the corridor, clutching a stuffed rabbit by its worn ear, her eyes wide and confused in the morning light. Mommy? Daddy? Why is the floor wet? Helen whipped her head around. The sight of our 6-year-old sister seemed to break whatever fragile thread of sanity Helen was clinging to. Don't look. Helen shrieked, lunging toward the doorway on her hands and knees to block the view. Lily, go back to your room. Go back to your room right now. Lily flinched, shrinking back against the wall, her small lip quivering. She had never heard Helen use that voice before. It wasn't anger, it was raw, unadulterated terror. Lily's gaze drifted past Helen's trembling frame, catching a glimpse of the bathroom floor, the overturned basin, the scarlet pools, and the pale, limp hand resting motionless beside David's work boots. The little girl didn't scream. She simply stood frozen, her eyes locking onto the jade bracelet on that limp wrist, the cheap plastic trinket she had traded 3 fruit snacks to buy for me at her preschool fair last year. Before Lily could take another step, sirens shattered the quiet morning outside. Tires screeched against the asphalt. Red and blue emergency lights sliced through the living room curtains, painting the walls in frantic, rhythmic pulses. Heavy boots pounded up the porch stairs, followed by the front door being thrown open. Paramedics. Where are they? Up here. In the bathroom. David's voice cracked from the top of the stairs, sounding like a dying man's last breath. Two paramedics rushed down the hallway with an orange trauma kit and a portable defibrillator. A police officer followed closely behind, immediately taking Lily gently by the shoulders and turning her away from the scene, leading her downstairs into the kitchen despite her quiet whimpers. "Sir, step back. Let us work," the lead paramedic said, gently but firmly, pulling David away from my body. David stumbled backward into the hallway, collapsing against the linen closet. His hands remained raised in front of him, curled into claws, dripping with water and blood, trembling so violently he could not lower them. The paramedics worked with practiced, mechanical efficiency. One ripped open my soaked shirt to apply the defibrillator pads, the other inserted an airway tube. Check for a pulse. Asystole. No carotid pulse. Pupillary reflex absent, fixed and dilated. Starting CPR. Charge to 200. The machine whirred to life. Clear. A jolt passed through my physical body, arching my back off the tile before letting it drop back down with a dull thud. Nothing. Again. Clear. Another jolt. The monitor continued to emit a single, flat, continuous tone that pierced through the narrow hallway like an executioner's bell. The older paramedic looked at the timer on his watch, then checked the temperature of my extremities and the pooling lividity along my back. He let out a long, slow breath and placed a hand on his partner's shoulder. "Stop. One more round of AP. Stop, Marcus. Look at the lividity. Rigor is already setting in around the jaw. She's been gone for hours." The younger paramedic hesitated, then slowly lifted his hands from my chest. He reached over, turning off the alarm on the monitor. The sudden silence that filled the bathroom was heavier than the sirens. The lead paramedic stepped out into the hallway, pulling off his latex gloves. His expression was carefully guarded, worn down by years of tragedy, but his eyes were filled with profound sorrow as he looked at David and Helen. "I'm so sorry," the paramedic said softly. "There was nothing we could do. Time of death is called at 7:14 a.m. Helen didn't scream. She let out a single, sharp intake of air, as if an invisible knife had pierced straight through her heart, and collapsed forward into David's lap. David wrapped his blood-stained arms around her, burying his face in her hair, and together, on the cold floor outside the bathroom, they broke into wails that tore the dawn apart. By noon, the house was empty of strangers. The coroner's van had come and gone. The police officers had taken their notes, photographed the bathroom, bagged the single eyebrow razor as evidence, and quietly exited through the front door, leaving behind a stack of bereavement support pamphlets on the entryway table. The house was suffocatingly quiet. David sat at the kitchen table, still wearing the ruined shirt he hadn't washed. His hands, the dried, brownish stains remained crusted beneath his fingernails. His eyes were bloodshot and vacant, staring fixedly at the center of the wooden table where Lily's birthday cake still sat, its frosting melting slightly at room temperature, the colorful sprinkles mocking the absolute gloom of the house. Helen had not spoken since the black body bag was zipped shut. She sat on the edge of my bed in my small room, clutching the blanket I had slept under just the night before. She held it to her nose, inhaling deeply, searching for whatever trace of my scent remained, lavender soap and cheap almond lotion. She took her pills, Helen whispered suddenly into the empty room. I stood beside the window, watching the dust motes dance in the midday sun. Helen looked down at my nightstand. The weekly pill organizer sat next to the lamp. Every single compartment from Monday through Sunday morning was empty. "She took them," Helen repeated, her voice rising into a trembling pitch. "She took every single dose. She didn't skip. She was trying." Helen's hand reached out, brushing against the small drawer beneath the nightstand. She pulled it open, her fingers frantically digging through the notebooks and stray pens until she pulled out a thick, spiral-bound journal. On the first page, written in my neat, hesitant handwriting, was a line dated 3 weeks ago. Dar. Robert said that if I focus on the calendar, Eve won't be able to find the cracks. Lily's birthday is on the 15th. I have to stay present until the 15th. Lily deserves one birthday where Mom doesn't cry. Helen's breath hitched. She turned the page with trembling fingers. The handwriting on the subsequent pages shifted. Some were written in my steady script, others were slashed into the paper with violent, jagged strokes. Eve's handwriting. "Eve, why are you keeping them hostage? David's back gave out at the warehouse. Again today. He couldn't afford the physical therapy because your sertraline cost $200 without insurance. You are a leech. Maya, I took the morning pills. The headache is bad, but I helped Mom fold the laundry. I didn't let Eve speak. If I hold on for 7 more days, we can eat cake. Eve, look at Helen's face when she looks at you. She doesn't see a daughter. She sees the basement. She sees Henderson. Every time you breathe, you remind her that she failed to protect you. Maya, I'm so tired. But I made a promise. Just one normal birthday for Lily. Helen dropped the journal against her chest, curling over it like a wounded animal. Oh, God. God, please, no. She remembered her own words from the morning before, echoing in the quiet room. With the precision of a razor. It's Lily's birthday. Can't you stop faking your episodes for just one day? If you're really in that much pain, then just go die already. I told her to die, Helen choked out, her fingernails digging into her own scalp until droplets of blood appeared. I looked at my baby girl, and I told her to die. David appeared in the doorway, his frame looking 10 years older than it had. That morning. He heard her words. He didn't offer comforting lies, he couldn't. He walked over, sank to his knees beside the bed, and buried his face in Helen's lap. We both did it, David rasped, his voice shredded. I told her she was selfish. I told Lily her sister only cared about herself. As David shifted his weight, his knee knocked against something hard under the dust ruffle beneath my bed. He paused, sniffing back his tears, and reached underneath. His hand pulled out a small, rectangular object wrapped in crude, colorful newspaper comics and tied with a length of yellow yarn. Tucked under the yarn was a small card written in colored pencil. David untied the yarn with numb fingers and opened the card. To my sweet little sister, Lily. Happy 6th birthday. I'm sorry I can't always play with you when the bad headaches come. I carved this for you so you'll always have music even when I'm sleeping. I love you forever and ever. Big. Sister Maya. Inside the newspaper wrapping was a small, hand-carved wooden music box. David recognized the block of cedar. It was a spare cut from the construction site he had brought home months ago. Maya had spent weeks whittling it down with a small hobby knife, carving tiny, imperfect figures of rabbits and sunflowers along the edges. Her fingers had been covered in band-aids for weeks, and when David had asked her why, she had simply laughed and said she was clumsy with school art projects. David turned the tiny brass crank on the side. The mechanism inside chimed softly, playing a slow, clear rendition of You Are My Sunshine. In the quiet bedroom, the sweet, fragile notes echoed against the walls. Helen let out a raw, broken scream that shook the windows, collapsing onto the floor beside David, clutching the wooden music box against her chest as if she could squeeze my soul back into the cedar grain. In the realm between the living and the dead, time does not move in straight lines. I sat upon the windowsill of my room, watching my parents weep. Beside me, a shadow stirred. The shadow took shape, condensing into a girl who wore my face, but whose eyes were dark, hollow voids filled with ancient, unhealed fury. Eve. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, staring down at Helen and David with a cold, indifferent expression. Are you satisfied? I whispered to her. Eve did not look at me. Her voice was flat, devoid of the mocking malice she used to carry inside our skull. They are free now. They won't have to work extra shifts. They won't have to buy our pills. They are broken, Eve, I said, pointing at my mother, who was currently lying curled on the carpet, unable to stand. Look at them. You told me they hated me. You told me they wanted me gone. They wanted the pain gone, Eve retorted, her voice finally cracking, betraying a tremor of something raw and desperate. They looked at you and saw the basement. They saw what Henderson did to us. Every single day we lived, we forced them to remember the afternoon they left us behind. I looked at Eve, really looked at her. For 3 years, I had thought of her as a monster, an invader, a dark demon that had clawed its way into my brain to destroy my life. But looking at her now, in the stillness of death, I saw the truth. She was wearing the exact same yellow sundress I had worn when I was 7 years old. The hem was torn. The buttons were missing. You were never trying to kill me, were you? I murmured, the realization blooming softly in my chest. Eve looked down at her hands. I couldn't stop the memory, she whispered, tears finally welling in her dark eyes. Every time the door closed, every time it got dark, I was back in that cellar. I took the hit for you when you were 7 so your mind wouldn't shatter. But I couldn't carry it anymore, Maya. It was too heavy. I just wanted the cellar to stop existing. I reached out, and for the first time in 3 years, I did not push her away. I did not take a pill to silence her. I pulled Eve into my arms. She stiffened in surprise, then buried her face into my shoulder, weeping with the terrifying vulnerability of a 7-year-old child who had been left alone in the dark for far too long. I'm sorry, I whispered, stroking her hair. You protected me as long as you could. Thank you, Eve. You can rest now. As I held her, the sharp, jagged edges of Eve's form began to soften, dissolving into warm specks of golden light that flowed back into my chest. The fracture in my spirit sealed itself. I was no longer Maya and Eve. I was whole. 3 days later, the rain fell steadily over St. Jude's Cemetery. It was a small funeral. David and Helen had not invited distant relatives or curious neighbors. Only Dr. Robert, a couple of close family friends, and the 3 of them stood around the open earth. The casket was pure white, covered in a spray of fresh lilies. David wore his only suit, the cuffs frayed from years of wear. His arm was wrapped tightly around Helen, who looked hollowed out, her cheekbones sharp and her eyes sunken beneath dark purple shadows. She moved like a ghost, tethered to the physical world by nothing more than the small hand she held in her own. Lily wore a black dress that was slightly too large for her, bought in a hurry from a discount store. She walked up to the edge of the casket, holding the hand-carved music box. Daddy said you went to a place where your head doesn't hurt anymore, Lily said. To the white wood, her voice carrying clear and bright over the patter of the rain. She carefully placed the music box on top of the lilies. I didn't eat the last piece of cake, Maya. I saved it in the fridge for you. But Mommy said you won't need cake where you are. Lily reached into her small pocket and pulled out the cheap plastic jade bracelet, laying it beside the music box. You can keep this so you remember me. I won't ask for birthday parties anymore. I promise to be good, so you don't have to be sad. Helen let out a choked sound, falling to her knees in the wet grass, pulling Lily tightly against her chest. No, sweetheart, Helen wept, kissing Lily's hair frantically. No, Lily, you don't ever have to hide your joy. You celebrate every single year. Maya would want you to eat all the cake in the world. Do you hear me? Maya loved you more than anything. David knelt beside them, wrapping his arms around both of them in the mud. We failed your sister, Lily, David said, his voice thick with tears and rain. We got tired when we should have been strong. We let her carry the dark alone. But we will spend the rest of our lives making sure you know how much she loved you. We won't let her memory be just sadness. Standing beneath the canopy of an ancient oak tree nearby, I smiled. The rain did not touch me. The wind did not chill me. Dar. Robert stepped forward, placing a single white envelope onto the casket. Before the workers lowered it into the earth. Inside that envelope was the final letter Maya had written to him during her last therapy session, a letter he had shared with David and Helen the previous night. In it, I had written, if the darkness ever takes me, please tell David and Helen that they did not fail. They gave me 7 years of light after the cellar. They fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. My death is not their defeat, it is simply the end of a battle that was too long for one body to bear. Tell them to live. Tell them to give Lily the sunshine I couldn't see. 2 years passed. Grief does not disappear, it simply changes shape. It becomes a room in the house that you walk past every day. Sometimes you close the door, sometimes you sit inside and weep, but you never pretend the room does not exist. The small house on Elm Street was different now. David had left the dangerous warehouse job. With the help of Dr. Robert and a local community grant, he and Helen had established Maya's Haven, a small nonprofit community counseling center dedicated to providing free mental health support and art therapy for children who had survived severe trauma. The center's logo was a tiny, hand-carved rabbit sitting beneath a sunflower. In the living room of the house, my photograph sat on the mantelpiece, framed in clean silver. It was not hidden away in shame, nor was it surrounded by mourning wreaths. Beside it sat the little wooden music box, its cedar grain polished smooth by Lily's frequent touches. It was August 15th again. Lily's 8th birthday. The kitchen was filled with the rich, sweet scent of chocolate frosting and fresh strawberries. Lily stood on a wooden step stool, helping Helen spread icing across the top of a towering 3-layer cake, her nose smudged with cocoa powder. "Look, Mom. It's leaning to the left." Lily giggled. Helen smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached the soft crinkles around her eyes. The dark circles were still there, faint scars of an unforgettable loss. But the hollow despair had been replaced by a quiet, resilient grace. "It gives it character, sweetheart," Helen laughed, kissing Lily's flour-dusted cheek. "Just like your sister used to say, perfection is boring, crooked means it was made with love." David walked in through the back door, carrying a cluster of yellow balloons and a large sketch pad for Lily's drawing lessons. He paused by the mantel, reaching out to gently touch the edge of my picture frame. "Happy birthday, Maya," he whispered softly into the warm room. "We miss you. Every day." From the open porch window, a gentle summer breeze drifted inside. The wind caught the sheer white curtains, making them billow into the sunlight like translucent wings. The tiny brass crank on the music box on the mantel shifted slightly in the breeze, chiming a single, perfect, resonant note. Lily looked up, her bright eyes turning toward the window. She smiled, raising her small, frosting-covered hand in a gentle wave. "Hi, Maya," Lily whispered. Floating in the golden afternoon light that bathed the kitchen, I watched them laugh together as David tried to fix the leaning cake, only to get chocolate on his own nose. The phantom pain in my chest was gone. The cold red water of the bathtub was nothing more than a distant shadow of a life already lived. I stepped backward into the warmth of the sun, feeling my spirit dissolve into the summer air, finally peaceful, finally light, and finally free.